Newcastle United may have not had the sort of summer they planned for. I mean, which team would be comfortable losing 3 of their starting 11 in the space of a few months, as well as their long-serving manager? But that's in the past now. Matthias Jaissle is the new gaffer on Tyneside, and I have a sneaky suspicion he'll want to sign at least one of his former players. From midfield engines to flying fullbacks and a few honourable mentions along the way, here are the players that Newcastle could sign this summer or next. First, though, to the coach, the German, Matthias Jaissle, the man everybody wants to know more about on Tyneside. Prior to his appointment as 𝗕𝗊𝗍𝗀𝗧𝗏's replacement, you'd have been hard-pushed to find a Newcastle fan who knew much about him. Still only 38, he had a modest playing career of his own, winning 2 promotions with Hoffenheim, before eventually hanging up his boots and turning to coaching. Like many German coaches before him, he was schooled in the Red Bull setup, managing feeder club FC Liefering in Austria's second division before taking the top job at Red Bull Salzburg. He also reportedly took his learnings from Ralf Rangnick, who, Man United's stint aside, it's not a bad mentor to have at all. In Salzburg, he won a domestic league and cup double in 2022, as well as the league title the following year. However, in all fairness, the Austrian Bundesliga isn't exactly a fair fight most of the time. Red Bull Salzburg have a huge networking and financial advantage over the other teams in the division, kind of in a similar way that Celtic and Rangers do in the Scottish Premiership. Newcastle supporters are, understandably then, interested to know more of Jaissle's coaching credentials, especially considering his only other senior managerial role has been as head coach of Saudi Arabian club 𝗈𝗊𝗍𝗀 for the past 3 years. Granted, again, he's won 2 Asian Champions Leagues, but financial advantages have undoubtedly played a big part in that. The benefit to Newcastle of Jaissle having been at the helm of 2 wealthy clubs in the past 5 years is that he's had the opportunity to coach some very good players. And when you combine this with his tactical style, it means the man himself is an attractive prospect. High intensity pressing, good defensive structure, and attacking the final third with intent. It's all positive stuff. After all, in an interview with 𝗕𝗫𝗴𝗍𝗀, he said he often looked at the transitions Jurgen Klopp put into place with Liverpool, whilst liking how Pep Guardiola finds structure and balance. Find yourself producing a mix of football somewhere between those two and you'll be doing all right, mate. But despite this all sounding very exciting for Newcastle fans, there isn't a guarantee that the squad he's inherited can pull this off to the required degree. Are the midfielders he has left capable of playing incisive forward passes? Are the forwards able to coordinate the counter-press? How long will it take for the players to really get him and his style? Well, there's a good solution to all of these potential problems. Get the band back together in true Harry Redknapp signing Nico Cranchar style. Here are a few players I think Newcastle should and might end up signing. Perhaps not this summer, but maybe next, if Jaissle is still around, because he's worked with them before. Firstly, and no outfield player featured more frequently for Jaissle at Salzburg than Austrian Nicolas Seiwald. He played 91 times, scoring 6 goals and providing 14 assists, so it's fair to say they're well acquainted with each other. He was the engine of Jaissle's midfield diamond, press resistant and defensively tuned in. And now that Newcastle have lost both Bruno Guimaraes and Sandro Tonali this summer, the midfield lacks depth in the holding role in particular, which makes Seiwald a candidate to rejoin his former boss. The 25-year-old is a regular for 𝗈𝗊𝗍𝗀 Leipzig and already has over 50 international caps at Austria, so most likely won't come cheap, but we're not talking Bruno or Tonali money here, so it's definitely an achievable deal if he's deemed someone that the club would like to bring in. The next player on the list is 26-year-old Oumar Solet, another former Red Bull Salzburg player. Jaissle's defence was aggressive and operated a high line in Austria, which relied heavily on recovery speed. And if you're going to play a high line, you're going to need centre-backs who can cover lots of ground quickly, and that's what Solet can do. He played 66 times under Jaissle, including the Champions League, which Salzburg gave as good as they got, despite going toe-to-toe with more equipped and experienced sides. From a Newcastle perspective, the club are going to need more signings like Malik Thiaw in the near future, that's for sure. Fabian Schär and Dan Burn are into their mid-30s and don't have long left on their deals, and you wouldn't describe either as being especially athletic. Solet is at Italian Serie A club 𝗕𝗫𝗓𝗍𝗀 these days, and what I'd describe as a very gettable player because his contract there is up in 12 months. You think of what I'm thinking? On to the third player then, and it's one I could really see happening, and not just because there have already been links to Newcastle. Real Sociedad attacking midfielder Luka Sucic was a regular under Jaissle at Salzburg during the 21-22 season. Scored 8 goals in the league as well. His time in Spain hasn't exactly been great, but there's precedent for players currently experiencing a lull suddenly rediscovering their mojo when they're reunited with a former coach who did get the best out of them. I don't expect Sucic to be that expensive either, because Real Sociedad's finances aren't great and he's kind of a bit part player, so why wouldn't you want to cash in? If Jaissle's going to play a diamond midfield at Newcastle, Sucic is the sort of rotation option that can play at the tip of it, interchanging with 𝗦𝗶𝗴𝗍𝗀, who may play as the supporting forward in a front two. Now, there's always talk of 𝗬𝗫𝗓 Livramento leaving St James's Park, and his injury history makes it difficult to rely on him for an entire season. Added to that, Kieran Trippier has left the club, so the team is rather depleted in this area, purely from a personnel standpoint. Introducing Amar Dedić, the Benfica right-back recently linked with a move to the Toon. At this point, it's probably good to point out there's a written article online from our regular writer, 𝗬𝗫𝗍𝗀, that tipped Dedić to join Newcastle before any links emerge. That's the reason we're bringing this up, because he's all about the credit, and that's pretty much it. He may have even already signed by the time this video goes out, or whenever you're watching it. Ahead of the curve, that's what we are at FourFourTwo. Sometimes too much for our own good. This one, I think, is less likely to happen, but I'd love to see it happen. Mohamed Camara is a proper little ball winner, and whenever he's always worked his socks off, kind of like an 𝗕'N'Golo type player. Before owning a move to AS Monaco, Camara was the midfield enforcer and defensive anchor of Jaissle's 21-22 domestic double-winning Salzburg side. He played 43 games under the German and was central to the team's success at home and in Europe. He's tenacious, always gets stuck in, and would instantly bolster Newcastle's stability in the middle of the park, which, as previously discussed, is in need of some experience and steel. The Toon Army have signed 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗍𝗓 from Monaco on a £34 million deal already this summer, but I still think there's room to add Camara or a player like him. He's 26, he's been playing in Qatar for the best part of 2 years. He's probably not going to have a better opportunity at a Premier League move, considering where he is now, than with the coach he won the League and Cup double with. Go on, Mo, bell your agent. What's Qatar got to offer that the North East doesn't? Lastly, there are a few others that I'm going to put in the honourable mentions category, because while I think there's a decent likelihood, it's the ones I've covered earlier in this video that I think have a realistic chance of pulling on the black and white stripes in the near future. There's Enzo Milo, an attacking midfielder out there in Saudi, who was absolutely cracking for Stuttgart before heading to the Middle East. He's a good presser, which is good because we've already seen in training videos released by Newcastle, the ISO has really focused on drilling that gegenpressing style into his players. There's 𝗕𝗓𝗍𝗓𝗍𝗓 too, a Spanish playmaker who was a regular under Jaissle at 𝗈𝗊𝗍𝗍𝗓 before returning to Europe with FC Porto, although if Newcastle are going to sign anyone from Porto, I think it should be Victor Froholt, the Scandinavian Lampard. And for my last honourable mention, I'm going with Karim Konate, an Ivorian centre-forward, a diamond in the rough who's found the net on a regular basis in Austria, but hasn't really been tested outside of it. He wouldn't be coming to Newcastle to take the number 9 shirt, fine, but as a backup, I could see it happening. He's 22 and would still have to prove himself in the Premier League, but averaging a goal every other game with Red Bull Salzburg over the course of 100 appearances is decent enough, and Jaissle was the one to give him his break. If he fancies returning the favour on the biggest club stage of them all, he knows where to go.